Hello, everyone. Welcome to IMDb Before the Awards, presented by Toyota. I'm Ian DeBorja, and I'm joined by Dave Karger and Garcelle Beauvais to talk about all things Oscars. Let's go to you first, Dave. Please talk to us about your background and what inspired you to pick it for today's show.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's really fun to be with both of you, Ian and Garcelle. As you two know, I love both contemporary movies and classic movies. So I'm in front of a backdrop from the movie The Artist, which is a movie from about 10 years ago that actually won Best Picture and 4 other Oscars. It's a contemporary movie made to feel and look like a classic movie. And it's special to me because the year it won Best Picture, I actually was hosting a show for Oscar.com backstage, and I got to interview all the winners, including the adorable terrier Uggy, who really steals the show in the movie and did the same on Oscar night. So that's my backdrop.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave. Now let's go over to Garcelle. Garcelle, not only do you have an amazing background, but I know you got fully glammed up for this show. So let's go ahead and pull up a picture of the full fit and talk to us a little bit about the inspiration there and then the background you chose as well.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be with you guys. You guys are experts in everything movies and Oscars, so I'm thrilled to be here. My backdrop is La La Land, and I have 3 words for you: Ryan Gosling, and Ryan Gosling. This movie, for me, is a classic because I just love it. It got me from, the start of the movie with the music. Emma Stone, I love her, and I love their chemistry together. And it's really a movie that shows you the struggle of love and also your career, which I feel like it's based on my life because that's my struggle. But we'll talk about movies and just stick to that. I am thrilled to have La La Land as my background.
Thank you so much for that, Garcelle. I'm also a huge fan of La La Land. And also, I mean, if we're talking Oscars, it was an iconic moment in Oscars history, the Best Picture debacle. But let's talk about my background a little bit. My background is inspired by the 1997 classic historical romance film Titanic. I picked it because I absolutely love the movie. I think it is a completely game-changing film in terms of what a romance movie could be, what a historical drama movie could be, these epic types of movies. And it's one of the first movies that I remember like having to go see. Like everyone was talking about it. It was in theaters forever. Everyone kind of knew it was going to sweep the Oscars. And so whenever I think back as like an Oscar movie, I always jump to Titanic. So that is my inspiration there. So great job. Great selection.
Great choice.
But now let's jump to this year's ceremony and talk about the nominees. So there are a bunch of history-making nominations, a bunch of Oscars first that we're going to chat about here at the top of the show. So let's talk about the great Chloe Zhao. She directed Nomadland. Dave, why don't you chat a little bit about the film and Chloe?
I love Nomadland. I really feel like it's a movie that speaks to the times that we're living in right now. I think the past year, a lot of people have readjusted their priorities, tried to live a little less materialistically and live a little bit more simply. And that's what the main character in this movie, Fern, played by Frances McDormand, is doing with this kind of nomadic existence. Chloe Zhao not only wrote the movie and directed it, but co-produced it and also edited it. And she got nominations for all 4 of those things. And it's history making because she and Emerald Fennell, the writer-director of Promising Young Woman, both received Oscar nominations in Best Director. And that's the first time that you've ever had 2 women nominated in that very important category in one year.
For 2 amazing films, too. I mean, I absolutely love both of them. Garcelle, what were your thoughts on Promising Young Woman, which is Emerald Fennell's film?
Wow. I mean, to me, first of all, who doesn't love a good revenge movie? I certainly do. I just felt that it was so clever. I mean, the fact that this character, goes so far to pretend that I don't want to ruin for anybody, but that she's drunk and then becomes this other person when she's trying to get back the revenge. I thought Carey Mulligan, amazing. I feel like she's so underrated. It kept me at the edge of my seat, and I haven't had a movie do that in a long time.
I also want to shout out one of my favorite moments from Promising Young Woman is when it does that Toxic remix of a Britney Spears classic song towards the end of the film. I think that was such a cool use of that song where they use strings. And, while we're speaking of music, one of my favorite films from this year is The Sound of Metal, which stars Riz Ahmed. He is the first Pakistani and Muslim man nominated for Best Actor. What a phenomenal performance with him. I've been a big fan of Riz for a long time, so I'm really glad that he is getting the recognition that I think he's deserved for years and years of incredible work. He learned how to do American Sign Language. He learned how to play drums, all these sorts of things that really embody his craft, and it shows so well on screen. Dave, I know you are a huge fan of The Father, which the great Anthony Hopkins was nominated for Best Actor. So do you want to chat about that?
Sure. Next to Sound of Metal, The Father is my favorite movie of last year. And it's a movie that a lot of people really haven't seen yet because it came out so late in the eligibility period. It came out in February. But Anthony Hopkins, who, by the way, became the oldest ever Best Actor nominee with this nomination, he's 83. There's never been a Best Actor nominee over the age of 80 before. He says this is the best performance he's ever given. I agree. He really takes you inside the mind of someone with dementia in a way I've never seen before. It's fascinating and heartbreaking.
Agreed. I mean, it was such a stellar performance. Something that I kept describing as like it was a magic trick. The way it was edited and written, it just really immersed you into what it would be like to be suffering from that.
Absolutely.
Garcelle,
can I say a little Anthony Hopkins trivia? I did a movie with him called Bad Company and Chris Rock. And I was like, Mr. Hopkins. And he's like, call me Tony. And I was like, no, I cannot. I would never call you Tony. Like, that's so regular. You're amazing.
I worked with Tony Hopkins back in the day. It's just a nice little, kind of thing off your shoulder.
My big shoulders.
Yeah, right. Your big shoulders, right. But let's chat last about Viola Davis. I know, Garcelle, you were also a big fan of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Viola. So what were your thoughts there?
Amazing. She can do no wrong in my book. I think Viola, what was really great about her with this particular role, the rawness, the edge, the attitude, just she embodied the entire character. You felt like when she walked in a room, you knew she was there. I just thought she was spot on. And I felt like it was different from anything else I've seen her play. And she's a force. So if Viola wins tonight, she will be the second Black Best Actress winner. The first being Halle Berry, of course. Yeah,
that would be really historic. And I think a nice cap to all the sort of progress Hollywood has made in terms of the diverse nominees that we get to see that we're going to be seeing tonight. So if you want to make sure you're staying informed and on top of all the news for tonight's awards show, including, winner announcements, exclusive videos, galleries, and all things Oscars, you can head over to imdb.com/Oscars. We had a chance to speak with Viola Davis talking about Chadwick Boseman's authenticity in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and everything he did as a performer. So let's take a look.
I believe that everything a person is channeled through their work. And who he was someone who lived right. Everything was intentional in terms of the people he had in his life and the roles that he took.
I am not king of all people. I am king of Wakanda.
Oftentimes what you get is you get cardboard cutouts in our profession. We're always trying to be the next somebody else. Nobody else is just trying to be who they are. Chadwick wasn't trying to be anybody else. And he was unapologetically like that.
Everybody got it. Everybody can't play like I do.
That authenticity and that integrity, that individuality is seen in all of his work. Yeah, you benefit from that authenticity. It's an overflow.
Let's make some music.
Authenticity, that's just the best word and way to describe Chadwick Boseman, not only in the way he came off on screen, but the way he just lived his life in general. Nothing is really locked in stone ever, but I'm fairly confident that Chadwick will win a posthumous Oscar for his performance tonight. But let's just chat about his career in general. Just what are your standout moments when you think about Chadwick's incredible acting career? Dave, let's start with you.
I did an event with him at the Santa Barbara Film Festival years ago for Get On Up when he played James Brown, of course. And to hear him talk about how he really did not have much at all of a background in dancing. I mean, his sister didn't even know he could dance, and yet he completely embodied James Brown. To me, that was the performance that blew me away, unlike any other, I would say, until Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And it's just so bittersweet that we're celebrating him and that I think the Academy will celebrate him tonight because there's so much more he could have done, but at least he went out on top with this performance and probably an Oscar win.
Absolutely. Garcelle, how about you?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom to me showed me different sides of him. I think obviously his integrity speaks in his work, right? He's really truthful to what he's doing. But in Ma Rainey's, like, even when he was like talking about his shoes, like how he was crowning over those shoes, to when he was seducing Viola Davis' character's girlfriend, I felt like there were so many different characters within that one performance, and he's just remarkable. And I'm just so sorry that we will not see any more of his work. And I'm
Agreed.
looking forward to his wife's speech tonight when he wins.
Yeah, there have been a handful of really powerful moments around Chadwick and award season. So I'm hoping we get one more tonight, which would be really, really amazing. But if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to IMDb Before the Awards, presented by Toyota. I'm Ian DeBorja, and I'm joined by Dave Karger and Garcelle Beauvais. So let's get into the categories a little more, shall we? Does that sound good to everyone?
Let's do it.
We're going to go through some categories and we'll chat about everyone's prediction and their personal favorite for the category. So we got to do a little of both. So let's start off with supporting actor. The nominees are Sacha Baron Cohen, Daniel Kaluuya, Leslie Odom Jr., Paul Raci, and Lakeith Stanfield. Garcelle, let's start with you. Who is your prediction for winner, and who is your personal favorite?
One of my favorites is Daniel Kaluuya. I mean, he is truly a thespian. And I remember when I saw him in Get Out, which scared the hell out of me, then seeing him present at an award show, and I realized that he wasn't American, so right there, he got me. But this performance was so strong, so on point. He was so clear in his intentions that I really enjoyed his performance. But I have to say, Sacha Baron Cohen blew me away in the trial of the Chicago 7. I have never seen him perform in such a way. There was no gimmicks. There was nothing. It was just purely an actor who showed up, and I just thought it was remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Dave, how about you?
I agree with Garcelle that Daniel Kaluuya is phenomenal, and he is going to win. I think that is pretty much a lock, along with Chadwick Boseman, but we'll get to that. If I had a vote, well, you all know how much I love Sound of Metal, so it won't surprise you that my vote would be Paul Raci. I just think that what he brings to this movie, there's been so much talk about Riz Ahmed, who's phenomenal, but Paul Raci is just so emotional and really moving and heartbreaking in this film, particularly a scene that he has with Riz near the end of the film. And it's a character very close and near to his actual life. And it was just really great to see that he got nominated. I don't think he's going to win, but I would love to see that.
Yeah, Paul Raci was incredible in The Sound of Metal. For me, I'm also just going to double up on Daniel Kaluuya. He was not only my favorite of the nominees, I actually thought he may have been in the lead acting category, but, and Lakeith could win Best Supporting Actor. But I do think Daniel Kaluuya is going to win supporting, and I also think in this category, he is also the best there. So it seems like we're all aligned. So if that comes to fruition, people will know where they heard it first, which is right here.
Right, exactly, on IMDb.
Before we discuss supporting actress nominees, we talked to one of them, Amanda Seyfried from Mank, and she told us about the process of developing the voice and character of Marion Davies. So here it is.
Part of me thought very early on, how am I going to fit into this world? I am a 2019 girl. What this cadence that they use to speak, the way that, I just didn't want it to be like this, I just didn't want to, I kept thinking of, Jimmy Stewart, and that was the caricature in my head of the way people spoke at this time. So I knew in some ways that was going to be really difficult for me. I also knew that if I was present as I could possibly be with the characters on set with me, that it wasn't going to be so hard to feel. Also, you have this gorgeous makeup and the beautiful wigs and the costumes. They add so much to this transformation. But when it came to really nailing Marion Davies, the golden age actress from the 30s and the 40s, I knew that I was going to need an accent. David and I talked about not using the stutter. So we decided to just focus on a slight Brooklyn accent, her Brooklynese, and let that kind of carry who she really was when the cameras weren't rolling.
Yeah, Amanda was incredible in Mank. I thought she was unbelievable. Really the standout of the film, which I enjoyed quite a bit. But she, to me, was like the high point of that whole movie. And that's saying a lot considering that incredible cast and, on the project. So let's chat about the other supporting actress nominees as well. So we have Amanda Seyfried, Maria Bakalova, Glenn Close, Olivia Colman, and Ye Jung-yoon. So same thing. Let's talk about our favorites from the category and who you predict to be the winner. This time, let's start with Dave.
Well, this one's really up for grabs. I think pretty much any of these women could win. If I had a vote, I would vote for Olivia Colman in The Father. I think what she does is very understated and nuanced and quite moving in the film. And I've seen this now twice. And the second time I watched it, I was really bowled over by her. Of course, she's an Oscar favorite. She's won before for the movie The Favorite. But if I had to guess who I think is going to win, I think it's Ye Jung-yoon, who plays the grandma in Minari. And it's such a wonderful performance. It's so fun. The movie seems to be gaining momentum overall in the season. And she won the Screen Actors Guild Award recently. So I think she's going to win the Oscar as well. And it'll be a really sweet moment if she does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and her Screen Actors Guild acceptance speech was so touching and heartwarming. She truly was like shocked and honored, which always makes you feel good when you see a winner react like that. Garcelle, how about you? Who's your favorite?
Yoon Jong-yoon all the way. I thought her performance in Minari was just a revelation. She was sweet. She was bold. She was, she made you care. I loved her and I cheered for her. And I loved her relationship with her grandson and how it grew over time. So to me, I would love to see her win the Oscar tonight. I really would. It would be really thrilling. And I think it's also nice to see fresh new faces, and I want her to keep working.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of fresh new faces, I also want to shout out Maria Bakalova. I kind of think that she might sneak in as the supporting actress winner.
Really?
I really think she was so impressive. And, I know she's been doing a lot of press to sort of talk about all these sorts of things she had to do to prepare for the role, speaking in different languages and all sort of stuff. So I think she might do it, but I agree with you, Garcelle. I think Ye Jung is the one to win, and she was also my favorite. Speaking of Minari, I had a chance to speak with Steven Yeun, who is nominated for Best Actor, and the rest of the cast of Minari, to chat with them about who their favorite professional wrestlers were. If you've seen the film, you'll know there's a cute little subplot about professional wrestling. So let's take a look at that.
When I was that kid watching wrestling with my grandma, I always liked Andre the Giant. And then he showed up in one of my favorite films, The Princess Bride.
Hello, lady.
He's a multi-talented man.
Man, I had a lot. I loved Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy, Macho Man Savage was great. Hulk Hogan was easy to like, but I just kind of like that whole era. That whole era was incredible.
Alan, do you watch pro wrestling at all, or just what you saw in the movie?
No. I didn't even watch wrestling in the movie. I think we watched something like Pokemon Go.
That's right. Okay, then Alan, for you, do you have a favorite Pokemon?
Well, Pikachu is one of my favorites because it's just so cute.
Oh, I love him.
I know. Has Alan Kim not been dominating like everything about this award season? His bow ties, like his little red carpet walk he did not too long ago. I mean, it's incredible.
It's incredible.
He is Pikachu.
Yes, he is. So let's chat about the Best Actor category, which is stacked. It is just a list of incredible performances all the way down. We have Riz Ahmed, Chadwick Boseman, Anthony Hopkins, Gary Oldman, and Steven Yeun. So same thing. Who is your favorite and who's your prediction? Let's start with Garcelle.
It's a tough one for me this year, but I think definitely it's Chadwick's win. I mean, how do you not enjoy that performance and also want to honor his, although it's a short body of work, it was tremendous. And I feel like he really deserves it. He's been winning thus far from all the other award shows. And I think he's definitely the one to beat.
Dave?
I agree. Chadwick is going to win. It will be a very deserved win. It's funny because when I had my Screen Actors Guild Awards ballot, this was a very hard category for me to vote on because I love Chadwick, I love Anthony Hopkins, I love Riz Ahmed, and I ended up voting for Riz Ahmed. And so if I had a vote for this, I probably would have voted for him too. But I will be thrilled when, not if, when Chadwick Boseman wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, stellar performance. And I think the best part about all of it is that it is truly a deserving win. It's not a, purely,
right.
It's not going to be given just because he passed away, but he is truly deserved for, again, not only this role, but just everything he's done on screen and off screen, just being such a leader in the Black community. I know inspiring so many young Black kids with obviously Black Panther and beyond. Yes. So I'm very excited to see that happen as well when it happens, as Dave says. But, I also do want to give a shout out to Steven Yeun in Minari. I really loved it. I loved everything that he's come from The Walking Dead. A lot of times people have trouble coming out of a role like that where it's a super genre show that has a cult TV following. And every movie that he has been coming out with, Burning in the last couple of years is one of my favorites. He's just phenomenal. So another person alongside Riz that I'm really glad is starting to get recognition in the formal awards ceremony beyond just like film Twitter and critics talking about how good these actors are. Seeing them get this like national scope is really inspiring to see.
I think they're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks to everyone who's been hanging out with us so far. But if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to IMDb Before the Awards, presented by Toyota. I am Ian DeBorja. I'm joined by Dave Karger and Garcelle Beauvais. We're just chatting all things Oscars ahead of tonight's big show. Let's move on to Best Actress. The nominees for Best Actress are Viola Davis, Andra Day, Vanessa Kirby, Frances McDormand, and Carey Mulligan. A wide range of films and roles and types of characters that were portrayed, which is always fun to see. Dave, who's your favorite and who do you predict to win?
I think Viola Davis is going to win. If she does, by the way, she'll be the first Black actress ever to win more than one Oscar because she won for Fences a couple of years ago. So that would be a really exciting moment. If I had a ballot, it would be a tough decision for me between Carey Mulligan for Promising Young Woman and Vanessa Kirby, y'all, for Pieces of a Woman. That's one of my favorite movies of the year. It is absolutely heart-wrenching. I guess my vote would go to Carey Mulligan because she's been nominated before and she's done so much great work. Vanessa Kirby's going to have a lot of opportunities in the future, but I think it's between Carey Mulligan and Viola Davis for the win, and I do think Viola's going to win.
You do? Okay. Yeah.
Garcelle,
I would have to agree with you. I think it's definitely Viola's night. For sure. Her performances are always spot on. But I do feel like I wish they would give it to two and Carey Mulligan could win as well, because I felt like Promising Young Woman was just her range. I really got to see her range as an actress. And I thought, her falling in love and then having this other side of her was truly something that was a great balance. And I thought she did a great job. But it's Viola's night.
I will go reverse. So I think Carey Mulligan also might win. I feel like there's a lot of momentum behind her. There's a lot of really good press there. But I think Viola gave the best performance of the year. She was really, really stunning. Everything about her in that film, like even the beads of sweat that are coming off her face, help her and like justify that win. I mean, every moment it was really hard to keep my eyes off her screen, which also had Chadwick Boseman. So two things there. Before we move on, I do have a question here about Best Actress. So a lot of people are saying that Nomadland, which stars Frances McDormand, is a favorite to win Best Picture. So Dave, how do you think that factors into the Best Actress conversation at all for Frances?
Well, oftentimes the voters like to check off the same movie for multiple categories, which would make you think that maybe Frances McDormand could win her third Best Actress Oscar. But because she already has two, and because she is one of the credited producers on Nomadland, if Nomadland wins Best Picture, she will win an Oscar. So I think a lot of the voters are aware of that and are more apt then to check off someone like Viola or Carey in Best Actress, and then Frances will win for Best Picture.
That's a really good point. Wow.
One nominee we didn't talk about, but we have an awesome video clip of, is Andra Day. She stars in The United States versus Billie Holiday, and we have a clip of her talking about the work of the costume designer of the film and the effect those costumes had on her performance and the activism tied to Billie Holiday's fashion choices. So let's take a look at that.
I have to give so much credit to Paolo Nieto, who was the costume designer for the movie. I mean, there's just very few people I've met that work as hard as him. And he pays attention to every single detail, and how can we take all of these details now and make them pop, you know what I mean, make them grab people. So his partnership with Prada on a lot of the dresses, not all of them, was just really stellar. You know, I say that he elevated not just the characters, but even Prada's dresses in this space. It was that collaborative effort that really brought it to the next level. And I think in general, right, you know, you wearing a turtleneck makes you feel a certain way. If you got your sweats and your comfies, I feel a certain way. I carry myself a certain way, as my people know. When I have my sweats on, I feel good about that. And yeah, I do change and I do transform when I have the high heels on and I have the dress and I have the, you know, you're just sort of aware. So the reality is the clothes changed Billy similarly to the way they changed me or anybody else when your hair's done and you're, you know, so there was like kind of up Billy, and she was dressed down and dressed whatever, but she also loved the feeling of being dressed to the nines because it was part of her activism. You know what I mean? She wasn't looked at as someone who was allowed or should be dressing like this. It's offensive to see her in diamonds and furs. So I think she really relished in the idea of like, yeah, no, I can wear furs just like white women can wear furs. I can wear diamonds. I can wear all of these things. So it transformed me for sure.
So Golden Globe.
She's so great.
She is Golden Globe Award winning. That level of so good. Since that was about fashion and Garcelle, look at you dressed to the nines. I'd love to know, do you have any thoughts on her wardrobe in the United States versus Billie Holiday?
Glamorous. It takes me back. That's a part, you know, what makes movie making so magical, because I do feel like even as an actor, the moment you put on a certain shoe, a certain outfit, it helps with the character come to life. And I feel like that was also a character in the movie, was the clothing and the wardrobe and the costuming and the hair and makeup. It was really visually stunning in so many ways with textures and colors. And I do believe when she said it helps you get into a role, and she played that role so well. I am so proud of her.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Dave, also, how do you think her Golden Globe win can affect this category as well for the Oscars?
Well, I mean, first of all, she has navigated this entire process not only phenomenally well in the performance she gave in the movie, but in the whole kind of campaign process of it all. And I've loved listening to her. I actually got to interview her earlier this month. She's the best. And just so smart in the way that she's talking about the choices that were made. And I can't wait to see what she does next. The fact that she won the Golden Globe before the Oscar nominations had come out definitely helped her get that nomination for the Oscar, because it put that movie at the top of the pile for people to watch. I don't think she has a chance to win because the movie didn't do very well overall at the Oscars, but she is someone to watch without a doubt.
And regardless, just her other actors she's nominated alongside, I mean, that's just got to be such a proud moment for her and everyone. I remember when she won, she had all her family around her, and that was so amazing. So, you know, obviously, congratulations, and I'm also looking forward to see what she does next. But if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to IMDb Before the Awards, presented by Toyota. I'm Ian DeBorja. With me is Dave Karger and Garcelle Beauvais. Don't forget to go to imdb.com/Oscars. We're going to be updating it all night with winner announcements, exclusive videos, galleries, and more. Once again, that's imdb.com/Oscars. So let's jump to a little game, and we'll get back to talking more about the Oscars in just a little bit. So for those who follow IMDb on social media, they may have seen that our awesome social media team, they like to play this game where they ask fans to describe movies with 5 words. So they went out to social media and asked fans to describe this year's Oscar-nominated films with just 5 words. So we're going to pull up a series of tweets with just 5 words on them. None of us have seen this, and let's see how well we can do by guessing. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so let's
Dave,
go
I'm
to
lean on you.
Let's go to the first tweet clues. All right, living on their own terms.
I know.
Oh. Okay, go ahead, Garcelle.
No Man Land?
That's a good guess.
That is a good guess.
When you say that's a good guess, that's probably wrong.
No, I think that's right.
That would be mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's see what the answer is there. Explain Nomadland in 5 terms. Wow, great job, Garcelle. You got that like instantly. That was
that's probably
no
the
time
only
at all. And there's another really fun tweet we came in here that we'll call out, just that had another set of clues to see if I could have gotten this a little faster. Home instead of a house. That is also a great description of that.
Oh, that's a great description, because in the movie, don't they say, is home just a word?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put that movie. Thank you, Arjun. I really love that. All right, so let's go to the second Twitter clue. Sad, sad, happy, really sad.
I think
that's every
know.
movie nominated this year.
That's probably true. That's probably true, Dave. I'm gonna guess Sound of Metal.
Sound of Metal. I think that because there is that little, without spoiling, there is that little upside towards the end of the film. Minari, but that ends kind of on a happy note too.
Oh, maybe.
Or it's also Promising Young Woman.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's every movie nominated.
It's every movie. You're right, Dave.
It's all. All right.
Right.
Let's see. I guess not. Let's see. We all had 3 different guesses. So let's see what it is. Oh, it is Minari. Nice. Okay, I will take that.
You got it.
Okay, so we have 1 point for me, 1 point for Garcelle. But let's see the other tweet. I know we had a second awesome clue that came in here. Maybe Dave, the kid loves Mountain Dew. Okay, yeah. So that would have made it a little bit easier. Great clues for the both of those. All right, so now let's go to our third and final Twitter clue. Shockingly good movie about sexism. Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's Promising Young Woman.
Yeah. Promising Young Woman.
I agree. Not much debate around that one. Good clue, though. Very good clue. So what is the answer here? Oh! What? Wow!
We were so sure!
Oh, we were so confident! Wow, okay. We're going to have a word with some of the producers on the show. They just got us pretty good there. They got all of us. We were ready to go on that. All right, so now I'm curious, what's another clue that they were going to give us for Borat? This is the worst not. Yes, very good. A little Borat-ism there. Awesome. Well, that was a lot of fun. If you want to participate in those that come through, you can follow at IMDb on Twitter. It's also on Instagram and Facebook and all of the above to go check that out. But right now, we're going to be taking some inspiration from our sponsor, Toyota, for this next section. It's all about performers who defied our expectations this year. Since the 2021 Toyota Sienna is a fuel-efficient hybrid with sleek SUV-like styling that defies outdated expectations of a minivan, we're going to talk about which actors or filmmakers did the same with their work. We'll call this the Toyota Sienna Defying Expectations Award. I'll start off with my pick. I talked about him a little bit earlier. So my Defying Expectations Award winner would be Steven Yeun. I know I said I'm just so proud as a fellow Asian American to see how far he's come in his career. Something for me that really resonated to me that seems maybe simple is that he had a relationship with a leading character on The Walking Dead, and that is something I had never really seen before in film or television. Asian characters are typically portrayed as martial artists or a joke character, and he had this really mature role in The Walking Dead, and that always sticks with me. And now just seeing all the incredible work he's done since then and will continue to do, he is absolutely my pick there. Garcelle, who is your nominee that surprised you the most this year?
My nominee would have to be Andra Day for United States versus Billie Holiday. She, to me, was a revelation. I felt like I was watching Billie Holiday. I wasn't watching an actress portraying Billie Holiday. And I think that's what I love, that Lee Daniels, the director, chose someone who we haven't seen a lot, and that we could totally immerse ourselves in the role, in the movie. And she surprised me. I mean, I know she's a singer, but I just thought she really embodied Billie Holiday. It was really fun to watch. I could watch it over and over again.
Yeah, really, really stole the show in that film. And Dave, how about you? Who is a nominee that surprised you the most?
First of all, I love both of your choices. They're phenomenal. Mine is Maria Bakalova for Borat, subsequent movie film. Here is this adorable young 24-year-old, slightly awkward when you talk to her. She's so great. Bulgarian actress who didn't even really know what she was auditioning for when she auditioned for this film. and because they had to keep it really secret. And in a lot of cases of the scenes, she had one shot to get it right, because you couldn't do a take two with Rudy Giuliani. And the fact that she was able to pull all of this off and be as fearless as she was without having a ton of experience, and for being as nervous as she was, as she explained in interviews, I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
Wow, you just made a really good point. The fact that she had one chance to do it is phenomenal.
Incredible. I mean,
Wow.
I remember when I watched it, I went to IMDb trying to find who she was, because I was like, there's no way that she like is a complete newcomer. I thought maybe they had hidden who she was, just to, like, keep everything secretive until the movie came out. But she started doing her press tours and everything, and it was completely floored. So that's a great call too. Great picks all around, Stephen, Andrea, and Maria. I think you can't go wrong with any of those. But IMDb, we also spoke with Maria Bakalova about what it was like speaking different languages, speaking of tough time learning these roles and having one chance to do these things, with many of her co-stars in tons of these scenes. So here is that clip.
We've been speaking not only 2 different languages, probably around 5 different languages, because I am speaking in Bulgarian with some Romani words, Sasha is speaking in Hebrew with some Polish words, and Dani Popetsky, Premier Nazarbayev, is speaking in Romanian, and in the first board, Azamat Bagatov is speaking Armenian. So this is a mixture of at least 5 languages, and English. So for sure, 6 languages exist in the movie. And I think we've made them work because we did rehearse a lot. These were the moments where our amazing director, Jason Wooliner, showed us the heart of the movie, because when you join the scene with real people, you don't have a second take, and they should believe that you're speaking the same language. So you have to know what he's gonna tell you and what I'm gonna tell him, and you start somehow feeling your partner just by his eyes, by his actions, by his face expressions. But also be prepared with the script, because there are some goals that we need to achieve, and we rehearse this in English, and then in the scene, who knows what it's gonna sound like.
My God.
I know. I mean,
That's
even just watching that,
incredible.
just watching her talk about it, you get a little stressed out, like having to process like all these X factors that can come in, and just not breaking character. Really, really incredible stuff. So we've talked a lot about the nominees and the potential winners. So let's go to the other side of that. Every year, there are so many incredible movies and performances that people want to see nominated, but obviously not all of them can be. So let's talk about some of our favorite snubs, some of the biggest snubs that we think was missed by the Academy this year. So Dave, let's start with you.
I have 2. As far as a performance is concerned, it would be Bill Murray for On the Rocks. I'm a gargantuan fan of the movie Lost in Translation that Bill Murray made with Sofia Coppola, and this was their reteaming. And I thought he was so charming and moving as this kind of cad, Rashida Jones's father in the film. So he did get some other nominations like Golden Globe, but he ended up not getting the Oscar nomination, which was a bit of a bummer. And then my other disappointment as far as a movie overall is that I was a huge fan of The Five Bloods. It's a movie that I kind of came late to the party on. I didn't watch it till the fall, a few months after it premiered on Netflix. And I thought it was Spike Lee's best movie ever. And to see it get almost completely blanked at the Oscars with no major category nominations at all, I just don't get it. And I think something went wrong there, and I'm not sure what, but I would encourage everyone to watch that movie. It's terrific.
Garcelle, I know you are also a big fan of The Five Bloods, but who were your snubs for this year?
Oh, my snub is definitely Delroy Lindo. I mean, I don't understand where everybody was when The Five Bloods came out. I just feel like he was the anchor of that movie. He grounded it. His performance was just incredible. The struggle with him, with his son as a father, the struggle in his life. I just thought he really embodied that character, and I want people to recognize that this performance was truly, to me, one of his best performances, and Spike Lee as well. He just hit it right out the park with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, Spike Lee just keeps on delivering year after year. I mean, everything he's doing. And so, yeah, basically whenever a Spike Lee movie comes out, there's going to be a snub somewhere, but I think you both called it out correctly for both of those. For me, I have two snubs I want to discuss. So my first one is actually in the best documentary category. It's this documentary called Boys State. It came out on Apple TV Plus earlier last year, and it is this really incredible documentary that follows like a boys' politics camp in Texas. So they spend 2 weeks or so doing mock government. And what's incredible about it is that the filmmakers, they did their pre-casting, and the 3 or 4 boys that they chose to follow throughout the film all ended up rising the ranks within the camp. So it's pretty like incredible to watch it. And it also just gives you a really intense look on like how politics is like affecting teenagers and where like that's going to shape obviously the future of America. So that was really an incredible documentary. I could not recommend that.
It's super fun.
People.
Super fun documentary.
Really good. And then I also want to shout out Shaka King. I think his direction of Judas and the Black Messiah was incredible. That movie, obviously, everyone's going to be talking about Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, but it was so beautifully shot. The finale sequence, without spoiling it, is one of the most like intense moments of film for me of last year. So I was really hoping that he would get the Best Director nod. Unfortunately not, but I think there are plenty of more chances in Shaka's future for him to get that. And my final snub, as if we can't talk about him enough, is Alan Kim. And we sat down with him and asked him to tell us any acting advice he received from his co-star and Best Actor nominee, Steven Yeun.
Well, I guess it was don't rush and don't overreact. And because if you rush, you make a mistake or will have to redo it. And overreacting is also bad because if you overreact, isn't really much yourself. So you should actually just try not overreact.
That little face, I just want to, oh, God.
I know. And like every time I see him do a little interview like that, where you just are reminded that he is a little kid, and then I think about his performance in Minari, it's night and day. It's really incredible, like how a kid can act like, and how anyone could direct a child to act like that. It's just completely awesome. If you're just joining and you want to make sure you keep up with all the winner announcements and photo galleries all night for the Oscars, make sure you stay glued to imdb.com/Oscars. Hopefully we'll get some more cute bow ties and all that sort of stuff. And incredible wardrobe photos like ones Garcelle is wearing today, and Dave as well. I talked to Dave about his incredible trim he has on there. And on wardrobe, once again, IMDb asked our fans on Twitter which Oscar movie's wardrobe they would want as their own. We had the U.S. versus Billie Holiday, Promising Young Woman, Trial of the Chicago 7, or Mank. So who do you think the fans of IMDb chose? Which film do you think chose for their wardrobe you want to take home? Garcelle, who would be your pick?
I'm going to say the United States versus Billie Holiday. That was pretty stellar and very glamorous. Although you'd be wearing a mask now with it, but still.
You'd have to match it, right? You'd have to make sure everything is uniform there. Dave, how about you?
I think it's going to be Billie Holiday with Promising Young Woman close behind.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead Billie Holiday and then Mank. I love that era of clothing, and I think that black and white just made everything look so good, right? It's hard to act like that doesn't look stellar. So let's take a look at the poll results. Oh, wow.
So close.
Wow.
Whoa. Trial of the Chicago 7 just barely edging out Mank and Promising Young Woman with U.S. versus Billie Holiday at the bottom. Huh.
Who is voting for this? I need to see these people. I need to see them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think the maybe it's because not as many people watch the U.S. versus Billie Holiday. Do we think that could be it there?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting that it was such a three-way tie, though. But I guess the fashion, if you're a fan of that era of Trial of the Chicago 7 and, Sacha Baron Cohen just dressed to the nines through that whole thing, especially in the courtroom scenes. But if you're just joining us, this is IMDb Before the Awards presented by Toyota. I'm Ian DeBorja. I'm joined by Dave Karger and Garcelle Beauvais. We're chatting all things Oscars. We've gone through a whole bunch of categories, snubs, wardrobes, favorite moments from the press tours, all that sort of stuff. But let's go ahead and chat about the two big ones, Best Director and Best Picture. Again, we're going to talk about our predictions and what our personal picks are. So starting off with Best Director, the nominees are Thomas Vinterberg, Lee Isaac Chung, Emerald Fennell, David Fincher, and Chloe Zhao. So Dave, who is your prediction and who is your personal pick?
Ooh. Well, Chloe Zhao is going to win. And for Nomadland. And even if there's a surprise in Best Picture and there's an upset, which could very well happen, I think Chloe Zhao will win. And it'll be a very historic moment. She'll be only the second woman filmmaker to win this Oscar after Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt Locker. And I just think it's so impressive what she was able to achieve with Nomadland. She wrote it, she directed it, she edited it, she co-produced it, and she just did so much with very limited resources. And that's why I think that she'll win. And that would be my vote if I had one.
I mean, not a ton of resources and even not a ton of like traditional actors. I mean, most of the cast are actually true nomads, correct?
Yeah.
That is true. People that she found during the research of the project. Yes.
Yeah, incredible. Garcelle, how about you?
I think Chloe's phenomenal with what she was able to do. Like you said, Dave, I'm going to piggyback on that. She may have done craft service too. I'm not sure. But she did a lot on her own, which is heroic. I'm so excited that there's two women nominated, but I'm going to have to go with Emerald Fennell. I feel like Promising Young Woman was just really stellar, and I'd love to see her win. I know she's also an actress, so it would be great to see an actress turned director actually win for Best Director. So I'm rooting for her.
Dave, Garcelle, great picks, obviously. I am also a big fan of Emerald Fennell. I think that she might be a surprise there. I do think it's going to go with Chloe, but I'm kind of inching towards Fennell, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and say it could be both ways. But what I think is interesting when I'm looking at Best Director and when you think about how the awards circuit goes and campaigning is that if you had asked me 3 months ago, I think David Fincher would have been like the shoe-in.
Sure.
You know, Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood. David Fincher really like pushed the boundaries a lot on this film, just shooting it all black and white, telling the story of one of the greatest and most revered films ever. So I really thought it would have been there, but it's just kind of fallen out of the conversation, which is always so interesting to me. But I do agree. I think the two leading contenders to win are two women, and that would be really like phenomenal and incredible to see.
It would be awesome.
Very exciting to see how that one plays out. All right, so now let's jump to the last category, which is Best Picture. Really like a stellar list of movies, especially considering I think a lot of people were a little nervous about what kind of movies were going to come out last year with quarantine and COVID, but we got a remarkable list, at least I feel so. So the nominees are The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and Trial of the Chicago 7. So Garcelle, let's start with you. How are you feeling about this category?
This category is really tough. One of my personal favorites is Minari. I just love the story. I love the family. I love the struggles in it. And, you know, just all of it, the resolution, the way it's just all of it. I really enjoy the performances as well, but the storytelling. And I love the fact that we're seeing Asian families, more stories being told. The last movie I fell in love with was Joy Luck Club, and how long ago was that? So I really love this movie, but I believe it might be Judas and the Black Messiah. I feel like they're probably the ones to win, but I really love Minari.
Love it. Dave, what are you thinking?
Well, it will surprise no one watching this that my favorite is Sound of Metal, because I haven't stopped talking about that movie for the last year and a half. But so that would be my pick if I had a ballot. I do think Nomadland is going to win. I do think there are movies that are closer behind than some people think. I think Judas and the Black Messiah has a chance to win, although the fact that it doesn't have a directing nomination hurts its chances. Same with Trial of the Chicago 7, which won the SAG Award for Best Cast, which is kind of their version of Best Picture, but I just don't think it's going to get there. Minari could maybe be a runner-up, but I think Nomadland, when all is said and done, is going to be the winner.
So on Trial of the Chicago 7, I know typically for like awards dorks, the SAG award winner for best ensemble kind of really correlates with the best picture winner. So Trial of the Chicago 7, I think at least to me, was a kind of a big surprise for the win at the SAG Awards. But as I thought about it more, it is very ensemble-y, especially when you compare it to films like Nomadland, which wasn't nominated in that category, but something like Minari, where it is a smaller cast, and Trial of the Chicago 7 had, 7, 8, like fully lead characters. Dave, as a fellow nerd who goes deep on these, do you think that's going to affect, we'll get a big surprise for Chicago 7 there?
A couple of months ago, I thought that Trial of Chicago 7 was the frontrunner to win the Oscar because it seemed to be the one movie that was getting the big nominations in every precursor award. So when the SAG nominations came out, and to your point, Nomadland was not in there, I thought, ooh, is Nomadland in trouble? But Nomadland has really resurged. Is that a word? It had a resurgence, and it won the Producers Guild Award, which is a very important precursor. And I just think, as I've said earlier in the show, it's a movie that speaks to the times right now. So Chicago 7 is up there. It's one of the movies, along with Judas and Minari, that has a shot. But I don't think that any of them can overtake Nomadland.
Yeah, on my end, Minari was my favorite film of last year. I absolutely loved it for a lot of the reasons Garcelle said as well. Something that really stood out to me about Minari too, and that I think was very refreshing, is that the movie wasn't about racism or wasn't about some of the hardships. Obviously, there are hardships involved, but it's not geared around race, which I thought was really great and interesting to see, because most films that are about, especially award-winning films that are about minorities or people of color, they're almost always just full of trauma. And so it was really, really amazing for me to see Minari about just an American family trying to make their way and live the American dream. Obviously, there are Asian themes throughout the film, but that isn't the core reason behind the film was made, which to me really makes it stand out, and why I loved it so much. But I do agree with Dave. I think Nomadland is going to do it. There's just a lot of hype and love around that movie. A lot of people saying it's very representative of sort of the year people had and the last couple of years people have been having. So yeah, I think that's going to be it. Before we move on to our next category or our next discussion, I know Dave, speaking of Sound of Metal, you spoke with the cast.
Does he like it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dave might like Sound of Metal, but and this may be influenced because you spoke with Riz Ahmed at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, which seems like 10 years ago, but it was a year and a half or 2 years ago or so. So do you want to talk about that before we jump to the clip?
Yes, so I got to sit down with Riz at Toronto in September of 2019, right as the movie was having its world premiere. I remember watching the film on my laptop because that was the only chance I had to even see the film, and I was blown away. So Riz and I talked about his preparation for the role and how the whole process changed him. Let's take a look.
Anytime you play a character, you try and draw on episodes in your own life where you feel like the rug's been pulled out from under you. There was obviously, a lot of kind of going within, and so there was a kind of inward journey, I think, that was new for me, really. I think as an actor, often I've been asked to kind of step into characters that I craft almost as though they're kind of masks, do lots of kind of externally facing research. But I think with something like this, yes, there was a research element, but it's just such an intense experience to go through. I had to kind of go within and just look in some pretty dark corners.
Your hearing is deteriorating rapidly.
My American Sign Language instructor was really absolutely central in helping me to understand, begin to understand the experience of someone who might be losing their hearing, and welcoming me into the deaf community, because this community is one that we don't often see. And I think something that we're really proud of in this film is presenting deafness as a culture and as a community and not as a disability. And that's certainly part of Ruben's journey.
Wow. I love hearing him talk about this movie.
Yeah, really beautiful. You can tell he has just so much passion behind it all. Garcelle, what were your thoughts on Sound of Metal? I know we've spoken to Dave a bit about it. So how did you feel about it?
I felt like I need Riz to do a lot more. I want him to do so much because I want to see him continue to develop his talent. He was amazing in this film. And I love that he said the fact that it's a deaf community and not a disability. When I think Paul Raci said in the film that we don't see it as something that we need to fix, we live with it. And it just showed you the amount of work and what we don't know about people who are deaf. And when Riz had the I don't know, a lack of a better word, but the piece that was put into him so he could have the white noise just made it feel like, you know, you were living in his head and you could hear what he was hearing. And it was just amazing. And even at the end, the stillness at the end, I don't want to spoil it, was just really moving and emotional and really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it similar to The Father, I feel like Sound of Metal was so immersive. I actually watched it once on regular speakers, and I watched it again with headphones in because I really wanted to get all the little nuances in sound they did, and it was like incredible. I know it's nominated for Best Sound as well, and I have to assume it's going to win there. But I am glad, you know, if it doesn't win in these other categories, it will at least hopefully take that one home because it's truly like something I hadn't really experienced on screen before. And then in terms of what you said about Community, what I think was really beautiful about the film is that the subtitles are actually hard-coded and burned into the film. So no matter where you watch it or how you watch it, the subtitles are there, which is obviously, you know, in, you know, showing support for the community that they're representing on screen. And I just think that's such a beautiful, subtle touch that probably affects a lot of people in ways that honestly I would not have thought about, like having it burned in there, and just seeing it there really showed how much they cared about the whole thing. So, yeah. So now that we have discussed the Oscars quite a bit, what are your last thoughts on the award ceremony happening tonight, Garcelle?
I cannot wait to have a cocktail and watch it unfold and see who's right between the three of us. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Dave, how about you?
Well, the one thing that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but haven't put a super fine point on just yet, is that there's a very good chance that for the first time ever, all 4 acting categories could be won by performers of color. So if it is Daniel Kaluuya, Chadwick Boseman, Viola Davis, and Yoo Jung-yoon, that's a first. And I think along with Chloe Zhao potentially winning for Best Director, I think this is going to be a really historic moment and something to celebrate, and something that really kind of explains and mirrors what's happening in the film industry in general, which is people getting different types of opportunities that maybe didn't exist before. And I think that's just a thrill.
Well said.
And what's so exciting about that, and like we've been saying throughout the show, is that every person you named who could win, like they could win and they would deserve it, which would be really, really incredible for so many, not only performers of color and young actors who maybe have felt like they haven't been able to get their chance. Seeing this should like inspire a whole bunch of young actors or actors who've been struggling trying to get their break. And it really, I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, because that's really incredible to see. But before we wrap, I know you two are so busy talking about movies, talking about, you know, TV shows and all sort of stuff. So where can people catch up with you if they want to see what you're up to next? Dave.
Well, I'm a host on Turner Classic Movies, so you can find me on there every Saturday afternoon and every Monday night. And then I'm always up to something on Twitter and Instagram at Dave Carter.
And Garcelle, is there a new season of a certain show coming that you can talk about?
Yes, there's a new season of a certain show called Housewives of Beverly Hills that is premiering May 19th, which we're excited about. And also you can catch me weekdays on The Reel and also on Instagram and Twitter.
Perfect. And then me, if you want to tune into more IMDb content and IMDb originals, you can go to imdb.com, find tons of videos on there. We're also in the second season of our first podcast, which is called Movies That Changed My Life, where I get to talk to everyone's favorite stars and actors about the movies that helped shape them, not necessarily their favorite movies, but the ones that changed their life, made them want to become an actor or inspired them to do more things. So you can listen to that wherever you listen to the podcast. So, Garcelle, Dave, thank you so much. This has been a ton of fun. I too am looking forward to having a drink and watching the show tonight. And for everyone watching, this has been IMDb Before the Awards presented by Toyota. Be sure to keep up with all the winner announcements, exclusive videos, galleries, all things Oscars tonight on imdb.com/Oscars. Thanks everyone for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.